Ready to go.
Awesome.
I'm rocking my shirt.
What does it say?
It's
Future
like my the,
Homeboy?
the book. It's my book
Oh,
logo.
that's cool.
Yeah, I figured like um my roommate was like, dude, you got to get like a shirt just to like rock whenever you're on podcast or just like putting
Yeah,
videos out. So, like I'll just like rep this. I wear this like every day.
that's cool. I like that you have
Yeah,
merch.
it's my only. It's literally just one shirt.
You know what? It's more than I have.
Uh,
So
you should make one. Don't you have a like a
I have
logo?
a logo. I just need to figure out like what I want to put them on. Like I think that a journal would be really cool.
Mm,
Um like shirts are the obvious go-to. Maybe like a hat. I wear a lot of ball caps, so I think that that would be cool.
yeah.
I don't know. It's just something along the like further down the road that I'll figure out.
Yeah, that'd be definitely cool. I would buy it
Thank
if you were
you.
to sell it. If you were to sell it, like I
Thank
don't know if I'm
you.
gonna sell my stuff at all. Not a plan.
No.
What's going on over here? I don't know. I don't know.
All right. So we're recording on my end and
Okay.
we can hear each other. That's awesome. So let's just dive into this interview.
Okay. So like, we're just going right into it.
Yeah. I mean, did you have other plans? Did you like want to go over anything before?
It no, I guess not. I just wanted to know like what the rundown is and like
I mean, it's
how.
just going to be a conversation.
Okay.
So like it won't be verbatim what the podcast is. So it'll be clips of you.
Oh, so you're gonna chop it up and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. So like not everything that you say regarding these questions will even make it in.
Oh, I'm all in.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Because I was nervous that like I was gonna have to like because podcasts I've been on, I had to just go on one take and like they hit me with questions, I got to answer them, and like
Yeah.
I don't know.
My podcast is not like that. It's more laid back on the front end so that then I have more to work with when I'm editing it.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you ever want to rephrase anything or if you stumble in the middle of a sentence, I'm going to ask you to just go back and start at the beginning of the sentence so that I can get the entirety of the sentence clear.
Gotcha. All
It
right.
just
Yeah.
makes it a lot easier on my end when I'm editing so that I can just say, okay, I'm not taking this answer, or I am taking this answer. I'm taking maybe a part of this answer that goes better down the line with a different answer that you had. It's
Yeah.
just easier to formulate the podcast episode that way as opposed to just a question and answer, balls to
For
the
sure.
wall kind of an hour and a half of just that.
For sure.
I feel like that's
Um.
kind of it's more combative that way, and I
What,
don't like the flow of that.
no, I definitely agree with you there.
Yeah.
I'm excited where how it comes out.
Yeah.
What is what do you so you use an editing? I'm sure you're very like
Yeah.
advanced in this stuff. So like I'm not.
Yeah, I
I don't
use
think.
I use Adobe Premiere for all of my video editing, and then when I'm doing my voiceovers, I use Adobe Audition to record straight from my external mic into the program.
Gotcha.
And then I'll export from Audition into Premiere and then edit it that way. A
Gotcha.
lot of people edit their podcasts in the Adobe Audition platform because it is specifically audio based.
Right.
But because I also record video, I think it's more interesting for me as I'm editing to continue to see our reactions.
For sure. Yeah.
Makes it more fun on the editing, so I'm not just listening to what we're saying.
Definitely. I started using Calendly or
Yeah,
whatever it's called. I love
yeah,
it. It's amazing. It's
it's
so
so
cool.
good.
Yeah.
Like,
Uh,
do you know Corey Camp? He's also on Clubhouse.
yeah, he rings a bell. He rings a
Yeah,
bell.
he's in a bunch of rooms that you and I are also in, and he and I were on a call a couple of days ago, and we were just reminiscing over the fact that we both love Calendly, and it keeps us organized.
Yeah, it's so easy because like you could tailor your schedule and then give people the autonomy to pick whatever time within your
Yeah,
schedule to
yeah, it's
work. That's
great.
awesome. Yeah, it's so convenient and it's free. Like I'll take
Yeah,
it for sure. Instead of like trying to figure out over emails going back and forth what days work. Hey, just check out this my availability and let's talk.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's so one of the things that I hate about scheduling. I mean, I don't hate it. I don't hate anything, but this is just an inconvenience
Yeah,
to play email tag trying to find a time and day that works for both of us. So
Right.
it's easier to just easily delineate who or like when, what day and what times are available for me, and then
Right.
send it off to you and you can just pick from that.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I'm all for it. I love it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use it for the rest of my life. So,
All right.
all right,
Here
I'm
we
ready
go.
to go.
So let's first talk about how you got into sports psychology.
Yeah, so I kind of got into sports psychology when I was in the process of writing my book and reaching out to people and wanted to learn more about the field. And when I got in touch with all these awesome professionals in professional baseball, in terms of performance coaching, they kind of opened up my eyes and my understanding of that mental skills is very much a skill. Like it's a skill set. And from my brief understanding when I was starting off and when I was an athlete was sports psychology or mental performance or any of that is just, oh, I'm gonna get pumped up before a game. That's it. And that like that and that's confidence. That was my very short understanding of what it was. And when I found out that sports psychology was a field in sports and baseball specifically for me, I was like, wow, this is awesome. I want to learn more about it. So I read books and I listened to a bunch of podcasts. So that's kind of my introduction into like a very short introduction to sports psychology. So
So how did you decide that this was a field that you wanted to spend the rest of your life in?
how to oh so when I got when so my I'll give them a shout out because why not. One of my mentors, one of my best dudes that I go to for all of this stuff is Brian Miles, and he's the mental performance coordinator with the Cleveland Indians.
Yeah,
And
I know of him.
yeah, I was just saying.
Yeah.
So when I first connected with him last year, and he was the first guy to really tell me what the field is about, I was like, wow, like they're talking about mental skills and how you could use it to improve your performance and overcome all these adversities in the game. One, I wish I knew this when I was playing, and two, I didn't even know the job existed or that job title was even a thing. So I was like, "Yep, that's the job I want. I'm gonna keep going with it, learn about what the path I need to take to get there, and then just do it." Because I was very much of a go getter, and I wanted to just get that work done, and hopefully, opportunity comes my way.
Yeah. I think that everyone gets into sports like slightly differently, but the common denominator is normally that everyone is an athlete and has, knowing it or unknowingly, utilized sports psychology principles
Right.
throughout their experience, and now they're finding they're all convening on this field and wondering where it's been their entire playing career.
Yep.
And so they're going into it in hopes that they can help people who were like them.
Exactly. And you hear a lot of stories of former athletes. That's mostly who's in the field. Sorry, my dog's in the background.
I have 4 dogs. It's all
So
right.
former athletes who fail and they obviously people want to pursue their careers as long as possible, but then when they figure out, maybe a couple years down the road that, oh my gosh, I wish I could have implemented some breathing techniques when I was playing to help me, or stress, have less stress and calm down during high pressure situations. Like a little stuff like that wants you to implement the skills into like when you're helping out in coaching. That's what I found. Because I mean, we're all athletes or
Yeah.
performers in some realm.
And I think that the podcast episode I'm editing today is all about draft psychology.
Ooh,
So it's something that you never really think of. You think when you think of the NFL draft, you're timing 40s and you're bench pressing and you're figuring out where your physical skill is, but
right,
the mental skill is so important to where what team you fit into. And I think that no one really talks about that portion of how you're being drafted.
right. And so, from my understanding with the MLB draft, is when they're drafting players, they kind of become together as a staff. So the mental performance staff will help out in the draft process, which is really cool, just to get to know the players and who they're bringing into the organization. Because that's amazing that everyone comes. I thought it was just a front office. It was just the GMs and the manager and some of the player development people. But when the whole staff comes together as a whole to try to understand that, okay, we're drafting this player, we want this player in our organization. Let's try to learn more about him and see how we can relate to him when he does come in and how we can help him. Because a lot of guys in baseball are either a lot of majority of baseball is from the Dominican Republic or Cuba and countries like countries like that. And when you bring those guys in, you want to make sure you have the right staff to assist those guys and try to help them develop and come up in the upbringing of baseball. So
Yeah, I mean, when I was working in the Pirates organization at the short season single A level, that's where normally all of the draftees come immediately after the draft.
yeah,
And a lot of them don't speak English. So when I was interning there, our finance intern spoke Spanish, so he was the unofficial translator the entire season.
that's
This
awesome.
random guy that was working for our team like literally traveled with the team
Yeah,
and translated the entire season for all of the ones who couldn't speak English. It was the most ridiculous thing.
that's awesome.
It
That's
is it
actually
is
incredible.
awesome.
That's actually, I mean, it's partially a reason why I want to learn Spanish. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm pretty decent at it, but I want to like actually get um, to the point where I can have full conversations with no problem.
yeah. I took French and looking back on it, I mean, I haven't used French. I haven't been to France.
Right.
And I think that Spanish is so much more marketable of a second language than French or any other language is, I think, other than
Yeah.
maybe Arabic if you're working in like world business.
Hmm.
But I like if I could go back and do it again, I would for sure pick Spanish.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely.
And also like it makes you more marketable to individual teams, but also broadcasts are
Ooh,
doing their entire production in Spanish. And
right.
so there have to be people broadcasting to the Spanish population of viewership. So why not me?
Yeah, you're right. I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about that. You're totally right. Even, I mean, non-broadcast, like, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud, like Netflix shows, like they need
Yeah.
Spanish translators. Even other, I mean, I know some Netflix shows have Russian translators, um, and that's all I can think of right now. But Russian, Spanish, English. I know
Yeah.
there's something else.
Yeah.
Chinese Mandarin is a huge one.
Yeah, I mean Mandarin is a huge language. I don't see it personally,
Hmm.
but in terms of worldwide spoken languages, I think that Mandarin is actually up there
Yeah.
pretty close, if not overtaking English.
Yeah, I think so too. I think I saw something like that too.
I may be totally making that up,
No,
but
I think you're right. I mean, I could.
it's something really high. Like those two are competing for most spoken world language.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I'm good with English though, honestly.
Yeah, I gotta. Yeah, you're right. English is tough as it is.
English, I can't imagine trying to speak English as a second language.
Oh no, impossible,
I
impossible.
mean, there are some English speakers who have spoken the languages their entire life and still aren't good at it.
And then the grammar of it, and the it's just impossible. I can't even imagine. You're right. I can't even imagine being English my second language. Like it's impossible to learn. Like we have, it's our first language, and we can't get 100 on an English class.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
I mean, I love grammar,
Yeah.
and so it stands out to me when someone who obviously speaks English still can't write English. So I can't imagine trying to learn it as a second language. Like I
Maybe
just
maybe it'd be easier. I don't know. It's another perspective to take and think about.
but we are way off topic. So let's get back on topic. We were talking about drafts and let's minimize it from the MLB draft to college.
Hmm.
What was the process of getting recruited like? Was there any I mean obviously you had to send in all of your film and all of your stats, but was there any mental component to getting drafted?
I think the mental component to being recruited for college is just understanding that there are a ton of guys who are trying to do the same thing as you. And the big part is doing something that stands out. So I tell kids all the time, if a college scout is recruiting you, right? And they're obviously recruiting you for a reason. They see that you're doing well, you're successful, and you put up good numbers or whatever it might be, and they see you go, they see you perform poorly, right? How do you respond? So how are you responding to that adversity? Are you throwing your helmet on the ground? Are you, being a bad teammate? Are you slouching? Are you showing bad body language on the mound? Like, what is that factor? Because all it takes for a college coach to do is just be like, X, you're off the list, because there's so many other people who are trying to play at the college level. So I think understanding that there's a lot of guys wanting to do what you want to do too. So using that to your advantage when it comes to when you do perform bad, right? How do you handle yourself instead of just doing the putting up the great numbers and doing all the measurables and succeeding and succeeding, because all the time you're not going to succeed all the time. So for me personally, I kind of use that to my advantage. I knew I kind of had that mental block I had to overcome was I'm not going to play Division 1 baseball. I'm not going to probably play professional. I'm not a professional baseball athlete right now. That was my kind of thought process. So was reaching out to Division 2 and Division 3 schools around my area, um, that I was still interested in academics and stuff like that. So then I reached out. I went to a couple camps here and there around New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania, um, and I got interest from the camps themselves, opposed to going to like big tournaments and stuff like that. I try to use, because the big tournaments, those are the tournaments and showcases that draw a lot of Division 1 interests, and professional scouts are out there too. So I knew that wasn't my market, so to speak, and my market was Division 3, Division 2, because I knew I could have the opportunity to play in college. I knew I had the work ethic for it. Um, so then the camps, I got recruited from the camps. I did really well in one of the camps. Um, and then they drew interest to me. They said, "Hey, do you want to come to another camp?" So I went the next week, did well there, and then that whole process was, let's come for a visit. Let's talk more about the school and what it's like living here and stuff like that. So it um, wasn't easy for my sophomore year of high school or my junior year of high school, but my senior year of high school is when it kind of started happening for me.
So let's talk about the difference between that recruiting style from Division 1, which is highly publicized and everyone knows who the draftees are, and
Yeah.
the coaches and coaching staff isn't really allowed to talk to the players directly until a
Right.
certain time in their high school career.
Right.
How does that stringent environment change from D1 to D2 and D3?
Um, it's in terms of like the recruiting process, it doesn't change the way things are, how they're managed and how they're done. The only thing that we see with Division 1 schools is you have to think of it like from a coach's standpoint. They're trying to give scholarships away. They only have a certain amount of dollars to give away. Um, is that what you mean by that? I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, I mean, it was more of the how hands-on are the coaches with the players they're trying to recruit
They're
from
they're
D1 to D2 and D3.
there's still, I don't know the specific rules behind all the NCAA. I know Division 1's more strict than Division 2 and Division 3. I just don't know what the date is, because I do know Division 3 schools or any NCAA schools can't speak. They have a recruiting dead period. Um, but I know it's very more so strict with Division 1, and I think that's because of the ability to give away scholarships and stuff like that.
So, what drew you to D2 and D3 styles?
I would say I wanted to go to a school, Division 2 or Division 3, because I knew I could play at that level. I had that self awareness of that level, and I wanted to go to a school where I could develop as a player. Because even if I had Division 1 caliber, low Division 1 caliber, um, if I was a low Division 1 caliber player, uh, I probably wouldn't play. And I wanted to go somewhere where I could play, practice, get to know the coaching staff, and develop relationships and develop myself as a player and also as a student. So those were, I mean, the student part, the academics part, and the location part was very big in my process of trying to figure out where I wanted to go. Um, and then just interest. So like if I had a bunch of interest from Division 2 or Division 3 schools, I kind of weighted out where, okay, what majors do they have? Where do I see myself in a couple of years when I'm graduating? Because that was the ultimate goal. And then, am I going to develop as a player in these 4 years that I'm here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you're talking about D1, the the assumption is that this is not the final resting place of your playing career, but when you're talking about D2 and D3, some of these guys are just hoping to get to college
Right?
with this skill that they have. They're not thinking about the next step because for them there isn't a next step. Was
Yeah.
that how you were thinking about it, or
Yeah,
was
no,
it
for sure, for
okay,
sure,
like
and I think the obvious pursuit for any high school athlete that's trying to get into college, whatever level, is to pursue their career as long as possible, and then do the schoolwork as a side, as a part of it. So it hurts when you end up leaving the game and you're quitting, but you want to pursue going into college. You still want to pursue your career as long as possible because simply your love for the game. So that was my thought process.
yeah, I mean, what do you think about the pressure to go D1 when all of these D2 and D3 schools have great programs but are just being overlooked by pop culture?
the the pressure is definitely up there, especially now with social media being a tool for recruiting processes and stuff. So it's just kids need to understand the importance of Division 2 and Division 3 schools, the same how they look at a Division 1 school. Um, I think there needs to be like a recognition and an awareness of that. Okay, maybe I'm not a Division 1 player yet, using that word yet, because you can still have get drafted at Division 2 school if because all you have to do is be a late bloomer, develop, and throw 90 miles an hour. Boom, you're drafted. Like, um, it doesn't matter what school you go to. It only matters when you develop at your highest peak. If you can't develop at your highest peak in your Division 2 or Division 3 school, then that's as far as you're going to go. And I mean, there's a ton of a handful of Division 1 athletes that don't pursue their career after. There's a ton. So I think that needs to be portrayed a little bit better on social media, specifically because that's a new tool of recruiting. So um, it's a shame that some kids think if I don't play Division 1, I'm not good. I think we're getting past that a little bit because we see a lot of guys who are in JUCO colleges and stuff like that that can perform at the same level as Division 1 school.
Yeah, I think that the whole talking down of D2 and D3 opportunities is a really terrible way to portray the people who you really utilize those schooling opportunities to continue playing the sport that they've loved since they could walk.
Yeah.
You know, it's just an opportunity to elongate your playing career, and I don't think that that's a bad thing, even though
Right.
you're not on a major sports network.
Right. And I mean, it's an opportunity and a blessing to play in college because I'm a strong believer that wherever level you play at in Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, or JUCO, like in college athletics is the best experience of your life because you'll create all these relationships and have all these memories with with the best friends in your life. I'm a strong believer of that. Even if you don't play, even if you do, the relationships that you build with the people around you, because it's a job. No matter what level it is, Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, college athletics is a job. So when you get to spend countless hours doing the same stuff every single day with your best friends, it's the best experience of your life. Now, I'm serious. I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
That's so great. And the fact remains that there are, I mean, albeit it's a small percentage, but there's still a percentage of D2 and D3 players who get drafted to the professional leagues every year from those D2 and D3 schools.
Right.
But what got you into baseball specifically?
Oh
I
man.
mean, I love the posters on your wall behind you as
Oh,
well.
thank you. I have one of the dudes I look up to when I used to play, Marcus Stroman. He's a
Yeah.
small dude. And then I have just my Yankees stuff. I have, I think, Mariano Rivera over there, a poster when they won the World Series. I forget what year. And then A-Rod, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a Yankees poster.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Um, but I mean, that's a tough question. I remember picking up like a wiffle ball bat and a wiffle ball when I was, I don't even know, 4 or 5, maybe even younger. My dad just put it in my hands and I was swinging it. Um, and I loved the game ever since I touched hands with a baseball and a bat. Like that was, it's all I've known, for 20, 17, 18, 19 plus years. So it's a part of my life, and I'll never forget the day I picked up. I remember the day I picked up the wiffle ball because I fell and I tripped over it after I swung it. So, but I remember it all. I love every experience that I had in the game.
So, are the Yankees your favorite team?
Yeah,
Are you a
big
band? Are you a bandwagon Yankees fan?
no, absolutely not. I'm from New Jersey. I can't be a bandwagon fan if I'm from Jersey. Been to a ton of games. I was in the new stadium when it was being built. And they were like doing construction, and my uncle had some connection in there. I was like maybe 7 or 8, and I have pictures where I'm like in the locker room when it's being built, and it was awesome. It was absolutely incredible.
That's such a cool memory.
Yeah, yeah, I loved it.
So, how how do you approach sports psychology in a sport that isn't baseball?
So I think the first thing when you're introducing sports psychology or any type of mental skill that's something outside of your comfort sport, I would say, is just you have to first, whether you're a strength conditioning coach, whether you're a nutritionist for a team, or a mental performance coach, the most important thing you can do is build trust and rapport with the kids and with the program, because no kid is going to listen to you, no athlete is going to listen to somebody who just is going to throw at them a program, mental skills, whether it's strength conditioning, anything, any program. No kid is just going to listen to them. So the most important thing I think is to build trust and rapport and have an initial connection and build relationships within the first couple weeks or maybe even a month, or how long it takes. There's no timeline for that. Um, and once you have that initial trust built and they're starting to understand what your role is, whatever it is, and they're like, okay, let me hear what you got. And then you just introduce something small.
Yeah.
And you can just tell them, if you have no familiarity with the sport, um, hey guys, I don't really know much about your sport or what you go through when you're performing at your highest, but I'll do my best, and I want to work with you to do our best to try to understand what you're going through and how I can help you. And if that has nothing to do with mental skills, doesn't matter, because
Yeah.
you're that coach for them. You're that vehicle, and that's really all you are as a performance coach. So
Yeah, I mean, the guy that I interviewed for my very first podcast episode, he was one of my college friends in the sports psych program, and he did a lot of hands-on sports psychology work with gymnastics and swimming and diving, and he's a
yeah,
baseball guy as well, so he had no prior experience working with either of those teams. And he said that the most important part of working with a sport that you've never played is to stay on the sideline, look
yeah,
at where the power is coming from, look at who's leading naturally or kind of needs a little push in order to lead,
right,
look at what the hierarchy of the team is,
yeah,
how they interact with their coaches, and then if you have a question, ask them. They are the leaders in their sport. You are
right,
there not to tell them how to swing on the uneven bars or dive from the 10-meter platform.
yeah,
You're there to talk to them about these mental skills principles that are applicable in every single sport.
right. 100%. I could definitely attest to that. And again, I don't have experience in working with other sports outside of baseball, but I can just imagine me just sitting on the sideline, just watching it and trying to understand. And I think asking questions is a huge part of it, because if you don't ask questions, you don't know. And if you come off as someone that you do know what they're going through, you do know the experience of what it's like to do that or do this, then that just comes off as like you don't know what we're going through, and I'm not going to listen to you to whatever you have to say after that. So once you break that, like then you're basically done.
Yeah, I mean, once you break that trust in sports psychology, then you lose everyone who even played a sport that you also played.
Yeah. Yep. 100%.
So, what, how, when you were approaching sports psychology from a general psych perspective, what were the differences in connecting with these athletes when you weren't coming from a specifically sport orientation?
Could you repeat that again? I'm trying to
Yeah.
understand.
So, well, I wrote down, how does approaching performance psych from a general psych perspective change your views on working with athletes?
Oh man. Well, I never worked with athletes from a general psych standpoint. I'm just trying to think.
Like, how does your experience and your background in psychology transfer into sports psych?
Why am I drawing a blank?
I don't know.
All right, one more time. I'm gonna get
Okay.
through.
How does approaching sports psychology from your experience in general psych change the way that you approach sports psychology and working with athletes?
I would say, f- approaching helping athletes from a general psych standpoint. I used to just think, hey, just tell them to be positive. Um, tell them to that it's okay. You're gonna get through it, and tell them I've been through it. And then when I understand from a sports psychology standpoint and a consultant standpoint, like you don't necessarily want to tell a kid that, hey, I know exactly what you're going through because I can fall into that trap easily. I'm coaching younger kids in baseball, and he's going through a slump. Every single athlete has been through every single baseball player has been through a slump, and it's so easy to be like, hey, dude, I know what you're going through. You're gonna be fine. Don't worry about it. Like no kid who's going through a slump wants to hear that. So I think that's what I would have said if I was just in a general psych. Oh, you're gonna get through it. Don't worry about it. Like you're okay. But as a sports psych consultant and thinking from that perspective, it's like, no, let just ask them questions of how they're feeling, understand what they're going through, and then try to empathize with them and tell them maybe a story how it could help them or something that could they could do right away to apply, and then tell them that it's okay that you're going through it, sure, and you don't have to bring up your personal experiences because the second you do that, it just comes off as that you know exactly what they're going through, and when you're in therapy or you tell a kid that, um, it's just not true because you don't know what someone's going through at that moment because someone might be going through a slump or a rough go about, and maybe something's happening in their house, right, with their family or something like that, and you have no idea. And you just said, "Hey, I know exactly what you're going through. I know why you're going through this slump," without the context. And I think that's something that I have picked up on learning the sports psych stuff opposed to the general psych stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a fine line between sharing anecdotes
Yeah.
and trying to tell them, hey, I have been in your exact position.
Right. Exactly.
And that's a dangerous line to cross
Yeah.
because you lose them automatically if you overstep your bounds.
And you could even go and stretch this as far as like a breakup, right? A breakup with someone in a relationship. You want to help someone that maybe your best friend just broke up with someone for a long time, and you want to help them and give them any advice because you went through a breakup. Well, not every single breakup is going to be the same, and not they're not going to be feeling the same ways that you are when you went through a breakup. Sure, there's some universal sayings, you're going to get over it, time will heal, blah blah blah. But in terms of like in the moment type of things, saying, "Oh man, I went through this like last year. You're gonna get through it. It's gonna suck for the first couple of weeks, and then you're over time, it's gonna heal." Like, yeah, you could probably get away with saying that, but it's probably not the best thing to say in that moment. And I again, performance in life doesn't really matter. These mental skills go across everything.
I mean, you can kind of allude to breaking up with your sport in that way.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the phase that you have to go through in your head as you're exiting the sport that you've spent so many years of your life
Yeah.
almost controlled by. I mean, you had practice on Wednesday or practice every day after school, or you're traveling to a tournament on the weekends, and suddenly your life is controlled by your involvement in this team atmosphere, and suddenly it's not there. What's that
It's like a
process
breakup.
like? Yeah, it is like a breakup.
It's like a breakup. I guess I can tell you my personal experience that I had when I exited the sport. Um, is that cool?
Yeah, yeah,
All right, so uh, I where do I start? Should I go with my whole story?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
All
think
right.
you should just go through your entire thought process while you were trying to walk away from baseball.
Yeah. So after my freshman year of college and not playing a single inning, I it was tough. I had a lot of struggles. I was putting in all the work and not getting results, and I would show up every single day knowing that I wasn't going to play, but I still had to give my 100% effort in practice in before the games, and I had to attend to every single meeting. Like I still had to be a part of the team, and going to every single meeting and practice and lift, knowing that I wasn't playing because I wasn't performing, it was absolutely awful. And I had to endure that for over a year. And then we had new coaching staff after because we did pretty poorly. Our coaches, all of our coaches left. Our pitching coach, our head coach, our hitting coach, and our recruiting coordinator all left, and we were left with a pretty tough situation going into the next year. So we had a fall season with these new coaches who ended up not being the new coaches for the spring. So that was kind of a weird disconnect. And then in the spring, I remember it was over winter break actually. I was like very on the verge of me not wanting to play anymore because it was not fun. And the second I realized that it wasn't fun anymore for me, it was the second like I realized maybe baseball isn't the right thing anymore. And it was so hard to think about because I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell anybody that I was doing it. I didn't tell the kids I was living with that I was quitting, or had the idea of quitting. And I remember I was working out over winter break because I was training. I was still a baseball player. I was still training. And I remember being on the squat rack, like my second set. And I turned around to my trainer after like one rep. I was like, dude, I don't want to do this anymore. I literally don't want to squat. Meaning like I don't want to get better in what I want to do today. Like I don't have a purpose for being at this workout. And when he's like, are you for real? I was like, yes. Like I actually do not want to get better. What do I do? He was the first kind of guy I talked to about me wanting to quit. And he told me it was, my decision, and if it was the best thing for me. And then I ended up going home after that workout, told my parents the whole story, and I made a decision the day after. Like I have to call the coach and tell him that I was quitting. We had a group meet with the new coach, and he wanted everyone's number preferences for the year, and he got everyone's numbers preferences except for me because I was still on the verge of even playing. And he texted me. He goes, "Hey Perry, I still need your numbers." And I called him, and I was like, "Hey coach," I went in the car because I didn't want anyone to be around me, and I said, "Coach, I don't think baseball is in my best interest right now. I'm sorry." And he kind of asked me questions about what I wanted to do after. He supported my decision. He didn't know me that well. Obviously, we didn't build the relationship because he was new. So it was easier than expected if I were to talk to the coach I had last year. Um, but then after the phone call, it was like a 5 minute phone call. I was bursting in tears. I was crying. And it was like the worst day because I just quit something that I poured so much energy, time, effort, and money into my whole life. And knowing that I didn't have to show up to practice was made or show up to a game every day and to not see my best friends that I alluded to earlier every day. Like, what was I going to do with my life? And then COVID hit in March. Um, their season ended up getting canceled and everyone went home. I didn't, again, I had no purpose still, and we were all just home and just, not doing anything. We had online classes and I was playing video games with my friends. I had no passion to do anything anymore. So that was my whole thing of when I decided to quit, how I was affected by it. Um, so I mean, I think it's worse than a breakup because you are in this relationship with the game for 19 plus years. I think the only people who could maybe understand what it is former athletes who did quit, who went through struggles like that, or even to go even further and stretch it, like people who were married and they got divorced, like that kind of relationship and love and memories, like it's kind of the same similar with the sport that you poured so much energy into. So that's my TED talk.
Yeah, I'd pay to see that. Let me let my cat out of my room and then I'll be right back. She keeps meowing. Come on, mommy. Come on. Bye. All right. So, along the same lines of breaking up with your sport, let's talk about tying yourself too closely to athlete identity
Mm,
because that makes the breakup from sports even more difficult.
yeah. um I was a victim of this. I think a lot of people get into it. um
I mean, I'm a victim as well.
yeah, we're all victims. And I mean, it kind of goes to the saying that we are defined by what we do. We're not defined of of what we do. We're defined of like who we are as a person, what our values are. Sometimes our actions don't match that, sure, but when we get tied into being, hey, my name is Perry and I'm a baseball player, like that's all I do, that's my title. And when you lose that, you lose yourself. It's tough. I wish I could give you a better answer with um how to overcome athletic identity. I still don't know if I am, because baseball's always going to be a part of me, even though I'm not playing. I would like to hear your take on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of people who work in sports are former athletes who have exhausted their playing capabilities and still can't exist or don't know how to exist
Mhm.
outside of the realm of sport. So they're in positions like front office staff and sports psychologists and agents and coaching staff, and it allows them to still be around the sport that they love so much but not suit up every
Right.
game.
Right.
And so, I mean, those jobs are not bad. Like there's nothing wrong about wanting to stay in sport after your playing days are over, but if you're focusing too much on getting back to that, then
Mhm.
you have an issue.
Right. And
If you're putting too much pressure on those those memories, I think that there's an
yes,
issue.
exactly. And I think a cool part of it too is after the fact you're done with the sport and you're still in it, it's kind of, you're not in it because you want to go back to those memories and all the experiences that you went through. I think it's more of, what are your values, right? So why are you still in the sport? Yes,
Right.
because you love it, but why else are you in it? And I think an answer for me would be like service. I want to help others overcome the adversities, overcome the struggles, and just be in an endless pursuit of excellence to do whatever they want to do. And if you can like lean on your values and understand that, you know what, maybe your athletic identity is gone, your baseball identity is gone, your playing career is over, you can still impact others to be the best versions of themselves. Like I think that if you can lean on that instead of saying, I'm in this because I miss my experiences, I wish I was going through it too, then you're in it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that if you've worked in sports for say 15 years, you're still living vicariously through the athletes.
Right.
And I
Right.
think that if you are, then there's a big a big disconnect that needs to be addressed.
For sure.
But at the same time, like athlete identity is a huge problem.
Mhm.
for people who have aged out of their sport or have a career-ending injury or just figured that their sport experience wouldn't go on beyond high school or college, or if they only spend a couple years in the professional leagues. I mean, that's the end of their career.
Yeah. I would even ask a question. I can't imagine what seniors in high school or seniors in college who went through when COVID hit and the seasons got canceled, they're forced to make a decision to leave their athletic identity behind, to leave their career behind, or pursue it even longer, do more school. And another thing with the seniors is the whole recruiting process gets messed up, and it poses a question where, like, what do I still want to do? Is baseball or any sport
Yeah.
still in my interest? And because it's a part of me. Um, so I think I mean I feel for every single one of those athletes who went through that, even the professional athletes who had their whole season canceled or shortened because I mean you train every day, every the whole it's a whole job and it gets canceled. It's I can't imagine what that's like.
Yeah, I mean, my brother's starting his freshman year of college this year, and he decided to forego his fall semester in order to start in the spring, and he's still starting with online classes, but he played football and he ran track in high school, and he was being recruited for both.
Yeah,
And he had a senior season kind of for football, and then spring track was totally canceled. And so
yeah,
he was so excited to run shuttle hurdles and get to states,
mm-hmm.
because as a senior that's what you're working up toward. And then
100.
the season was totally canceled, and he was left kind of spiraling, like, what do I do now? Because
Yeah,
this was what I was so looking forward to, and now it was just ripped out from under me by no fault of my own.
right. Yep.
And I'd like to see research done on student athletes coming out of COVID. Like, what are they doing? How did
Yeah,
they deal with that?
right. No, that'd be a really cool thing to look for. I don't know. Huh.
So, like, for an athlete who is no longer an athlete, how do you think that the book that you've written will help them?
I think it could help them bring a ton of value, whether it's learning more about performance and how to be a better athlete, be a better performer. But also, I think I have a great amount of contributions from professional athletes and professional coaches who give their advice and insights to aspiring professionals in baseball. So I think what's unique about my book, and I don't want to like brag or come off in a
Come on,
cocky way.
brag. You wrote it. You created this thing.
I
Brag
know.
about it as much as you want.
Well,
This is your time to totally plug your accomplishment.
I just hate marketing it in a way that like comes off where I just want to do it to push it out. But I do truly believe it has a lot of value. I think what's unique about my book is it hits the audience of youth athletes, high school athletes, college athletes, and even professional, because I do have an adequate amount of professional players and athletes who give an inside perspective of what it's actually like in pro ball. And I think that's really cool um, to see because if you can hit the youth athletes and parents, and then you can hit the high school athletes who want to get recruited into college, who are also interested in playing professional baseball, and then you even have a reader like a professional athlete, I mean, in the minor leagues, seeing advice and hearing advice from veterans who were in MLB for years. I think if if a parent were to read this or a coach were to read this, and even I mean a high school athlete were to read this, they would gain a different perspective of the obvious of the nutrition, the strength conditioning, all of that. But again, the big part of it that I wrote was the mental side that I wish I knew when I was playing. So I hope I could give that perspective and understand. I understand that I'm not the absolute expert of anything I wrote. I gave my personal experiences. Sure, I can share and give my advice and my 2 cents. But again, as I told you, like my half of my book is contributors, and those guys are the experts. Those guys are the hitting coaches in professional baseball, the fielding coaches, professional baseball, the pitching coaches. Like those are the guys that I lean on for advice when it comes to me, my coaching career, and just learning and developing. So if I would just highly advise anyone who's like interested in getting better in this most simplest way, getting better in baseball, learning and developing, like this book is all for you.
So if you were looking back and trying to become the Perry that was getting recruited to play in college, what would you have told him about mental skills?
I would tell my past self that I need to work on my mental skills every day, and find ways to integrate them into practice and into the game. So I guess I can give a couple examples. Um, I think a cool thing that I could have used, whether on the mound or in the batter's box, is a pre-pitch routine or a mistake routine. And a lot of examples that I show is Aaron Judge, who's with the Yankees, of course. He does this mistake routine where he swings in a bad pitch, or he gets a bad call from an umpire, or he misses a ball and fouls it off that he should have crushed over the left field wall. He'll step out of the box and you see him. I see this on TV. It's actually incredible. He'll step out of the box, grab some dirt, and then throw it away. And what that does for him, and I think that I could have used it, is he takes away he picks up all the mistakes that he just did, all the negative thoughts that he just had in that moment, and literally physically throws it away. And it seems so simple, but it's something that I think would have helped me just kind of move on and play to the next pitch. I think just typical breathing and understanding my breath more on the mound would have helped me calm and help me calm down in high pressure situations. I think in training, if I'm training and working out, I would tell myself to have maybe some more positive or effective self talk. Like that would have been probably beneficial for my confidence and my low self esteem that I had when I was struggling. Um, all these things I think I could have definitely applied. So again, that's why I kind of want others to implement these skills into practice, into their training, into their game, because I know meditation is not for everybody. All positive self talk's not for everybody. That's why sometimes I say effective, whatever works for you. So I think if I were to tell myself, I would have, like in the past when I was playing, like I would have definitely implemented those skills.
So what about imposter syndrome? What was your experience playing with imposter syndrome and did it impact you?
Well, I had imposter syndrome when I my first college outing. I It was an inner squad, a scrimmage with our guys, and it was the first time the freshmen were pitching or and playing, and I had to prove myself to the coaches that I was still pretty good, and I just did the opposite. I uh, I walked four guys in a row without throwing a single strike, and so I was 16 balls in a row, and I remember throwing the ball in the same exact spot every single pitch. And after the second walk, I had so many questions in my head where it was like, why are you still here? How did you even get into college? You should just quit now. You're never going to see the mound. You're never going to see the field. Stop pitching. You stink. Um, and it was like the worst experience of my life. And after the third walk, it was just expected that I was just going to walk the next guy and like not even throw a strike. Because that's the kind of confidence that I had after that. I had no way of going back. As soon as I started having those questions that and questioning my ability to play the game, I knew there was just no going back from there. Does that kind of answer that question?
Perfectly.
So that was my experience, and it was not fun.
So when you were in the midst of that ball extravaganza, we'll call
Yeah.
it, what was going through your mind?
Well, I after after the second walk, so the first walk, right? It was like, okay, let me throw some strikes, and then I had my teammates behind me, like, okay, Perry, don't worry about it, like you got it. I'm like, okay, I got it, no worries. And then the second walk happened. I'm like, okay, well, that's not that good. I just threw eight balls in a row. And then I hear my roommate who's playing second base behind me. He goes, come on, Perry, you got this. I think he came and called timeout and like came to talk to me. And then after the third walk, I think I was expected that I was going to throw the fourth. and it was like kind of quiet because everyone knew that I was struggling, but no one knew what to kind of do about the whole situation because it was so embarrassing. And um, I mean, all my friends make fun of me to this day about it. But like when I when I'm thinking about like what I was thinking about in the moment, again after the third and the second and third walk, I was like, "Yep, it's it. My pitching career is over. I'm never going to see the field." Um, and it was awful. And then I remember just like after when I went back to the dorms, I didn't eat or talk to anybody for like hours. I think the whole day actually. I didn't do anything. I just sat in my bed.
So why don't you think that your coach pulled you?
I think so. Well, the main reason was I think they still wanted to. It wasn't a game, so to speak. It was more like a evaluation type of thing. So I think they wanted me to just kind of figure it out, or they just wanted to see me suffer. It's either one of the two. I don't really know. I think it's the first option. I think it was because they needed to see me. They wanted to see me pitch and understand what I was doing wrong. Um, but then after the fact, they talked to me, and I don't know. I don't really know. I wish I knew. I wanted to be pulled. Obviously, I wanted to be pulled after the third. I was like, I'm not doing four because that would be really bad. I remember like it was yesterday.
It's, I mean, that's such an insane story.
It was a fastball. I just threw fastballs because I couldn't. Why would I throw anything else? Because I wasn't throwing a strike. It was fastballs and in high and inside to a righty every single time. I had one lefty, I think, and I threw it high and away to a lefty. Just fastballs.
I'm just gonna title this podcast just fastballs. No, but I mean, those are the kind of stories that you have to physically go through. You have to be in the heat of the moment to even figure out how you deal with it.
Yeah,
And unfortunately, you had that moment and those moments, and you made a decision to deal with it the way that you did. And now that your playing career is over, you look, it seems like you're looking back on that not in an embarrassed way, but in a turning point in my life kind of way.
yeah. I definitely look at it. I think I started looking at it as a pivotal point when like I was starting to write the book. I think that was like, oh, okay, this experience, because then I started to think in a more positive way. I was thinking, you know what, maybe that happens for a reason. Obviously, me playing baseball wasn't the best path, and this is. And I think when you have that realization that a pivotal point happens when you're literally in the trenches and you're just rock bottom, like when you go through that and then you come up from it and figure out life and figure out how you overcame that, then that's when you're on fire. I think people. I mean, I'm very biased, obviously, but I think when I hear a lot of stories of successful entrepreneurs or successful athletes, they all go through the worst to get up and try to thrive. They're not just surviving in it; they're thriving. So,
How do you think that your experience with baseball will help you down the line?
well, I mean, I think my story would resonate with a lot of players. Again, but I don't want to fall into the trap where, hey, you're walking guys, don't worry about it. Like I walked four guys in a row, don't worry about it. Like I would love to say that, but again, that's not a right thing to say, or that's going to help athletes. But I think my playing experience, I mean, just speaking the language of baseball will help me out in the future. Um, but again, as a mental performance consultant or aspiring mental performance consultant, it doesn't matter what sport you played or had in the past. I think having a sport background is the best option, but it doesn't matter because if you can work in the military and portray the same message and show the same skills and still build that relationships, doesn't matter. It's all universal. So I think it would help me out just like speaking baseball and the language with maybe younger guys. But in terms of high performers, I don't think it should.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you're talking about failures or anything that you would quantify as a failure, it's not necessarily, I mean, failure is an objective.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at your existence and you're saying, okay, I failed here, 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 and here, and I didn't learn anything from them, I just continued how I was doing,
Mhm.
then they didn't serve their purpose.
Right.
But if
Right.
you fail in a big way and you learn from it and you move on and you institute in the rest of your life what you learned from that failure, once, one, you'll never do it again. And two, the rest of your life will be looking at failures through the lens of how you've learned to work with them.
Well, right, and I think that's the whole growth mindset thing. That was like the first book that I read when I started learning about it was Mindset by Carol Dweck. And when you can just start viewing failures as opportunities and accepting challenges because you want to take risks and just learn, it's incredible when you change that perspective. It doesn't matter if you're taking risks because you understand that you're probably going to fail at least once or twice or multiple times with whatever you're doing. But again, you learn if you can understand that you're going to learn from the process or hope to learn and want to learn from it. I mean, I think it takes a certain type of person to do that, and to I mean, it's not for everybody. Some people see the world in very black and white. You fail, you're not going to succeed at that again. You just quit it. And it's not like that. It's not like I don't think that's the right way to go about thinking and your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think of myself as kind of a centralist between optimism and realism
Hmm.
because I'm able to be optimistic about life and about opportunities, but I'm also very self-aware of where my abilities are best suited and maybe need
Yeah.
some work, conversely.
There's this awesome thing that Kellen Lee said. He's Dr. Kellen Lee now. I got to mention that. He's Dr. Kellen Lee. He's a mental skills coach with the Giants. And one thing he said was he calls it realistic optimism, which is like basically what you just said, which is awesome. I got to find it. Um,
Yeah, that's cool.
yeah, it was amazing. It's amazing when I heard that, I was like, yeah, that's amazing because it's different. It's not for everybody to just say to be positive and just in certain situations because you can't all the time.
Right.
Let me see where it is. I made a graphic of it. I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, I mean, optimism, first of all, is not for everyone. I mean, there are a healthy amount of pessimists in this world.
Yeah, yeah,
And I just have come to terms with the fact that my optimist message will not be well received with those people.
right, right.
And that's really all there is to
That's
it. I mean, I can't
right.
try to change how they see the world.
Yeah,
And that's kind of disappointing. You
yeah.
know,
It
like
it is.
some people just get gutted by failures. And that's what you were just talking about. I mean, I think that if we see failure as the inability to do well, then that carries over in every aspect of our life. But if we see failure as a learning tool,
Yeah,
and we don't see failing as failure, we see failing as the road to success, then you never stop working toward it.
right. And taking risks and getting out of your comfort zone is a whole part of that too. Um, here, I found the realistic optimism. I'm going to read it right now.
Awesome.
So, what is optimism? And he says, optimism is misunderstood to be thinking positively. Optimism is a true belief that the future is good or the future outcomes can be good. So, there's 3 points to that he has. Be realistic. You're not denying reality. However, you can influence the future. It's not going to be perfect. And you have to accurately assess situations. So, how do you shift your perspective? How can you give yourself a competitive advantage to what I'm dealt with? And again, the whole cliche control the controllables. And then optimism is a thinking style. It's not a personality trait. You can choose to think optimistically and realistically. It doesn't mean you can't be pessimistic at times. And there's a difference between being an optimistic person and an optimistic thinker.
Whoa, man.
Yeah, it was literally a truth bomb.
Drop the mic.
Yeah,
Go home.
I don't even
We're
have
done
my.
here. So, what is your career goal?
My career
How
goal.
are you hoping to combine everything that you've said in this podcast into a career? where you're influencing people's life decisions with what you're saying.
My career goal is to be a mental performance coach, certified CMPC, and hopefully have an opportunity within professional baseball. Like I can say confidently that's my end goal with it all. I see myself, like I visualize seeing this moment, like me standing on the sidelines watching spring training. Like that's what I want, and that's like my end goal. So I always like lean on that and think about that. So the whole process is just to keep doing, what I'm doing in terms of whether it's connecting and networking and talking to people in the field and outside of the field, learning, reading books, doing the schoolwork. That's like the most important part probably. Getting to grad school, specifically for a sports psych program, and getting my applied work done so then I can get the hours done for the CMPC, take the exam, pass it. That's like the route that I have to kind of go through. If I can help any athlete along the way in any way, like I'm all for it. I want to. So that's kind of what I'm doing now when I'm coaching.
Yeah. I
What about you?
I mean I'm not really sure as of right now. I mean, I want to combine sports psychology and journalism
Yeah.
into this podcast and a potential television show on a major sports network talking about issues like sports psychology and the mental health stigma that's still happening in sports,
Right.
because I think that that's not something that's going to go away quickly, and I don't think that it goes away at all without us talking about it on a grand stage. And
Yeah.
if it takes a podcast or it takes a TV show, like who better than a journalism major with a vested interest in sports psychology?
Right. No, 100%. 100%. And I think for you, like the cool thing is going to be kind of your route to it, because there is no definite route for it or like
Right.
a fine path that you have to take.
Right.
It's just going to be a combination of trial and error of doing all these things, doing your podcast and trying to create and make something big of it. And then also just being yourself and doing what you can to try to get an opportunity. Um, and then once, like, so I like to think of you create your own opportunity, you don't wait for it. And I think you're
Right.
exactly doing, I think you're doing that. I'm trying to do that. We're all trying to do that.
Yeah.
But many people try to just wait for an opportunity to come, right? Instead of like pushing proactively doing something to get there. And I think when you do get the opportunity, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So, but again, there's no timeline.
Right.
So when you get there, you just have to dominate, like absolutely dominate in
Yeah.
that realm for however long, and then you're set. And then you're
Yeah.
set, and then you're the person. You're the only person um, who's in that, because you have to think of it this way too. I'm sure there's other people who have the same interest
Yeah.
or want to do the same thing or have ideas of the same thing. And the key word there was ideas. Like, but you have to take action and make it an
Right.
actual thing.
Yeah, I mean, when I was figuring out what I wanted to do this podcast on, I did my market research. I went on Apple Podcasts and I went on Spotify, and I saw that anyone who wants to can make a sport podcast.
Yeah.
They can talk about whatever they want, and they don't have to be right or researched or anything. It can be just chilling with the boys, chilling
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
girls, talking sports. Like, it can be super laid back, and that I think that the market is just so oversaturated with sport podcasts that I wanted to do something different.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you are. I mean, I think there's a lot of there's a ton of podcasts, especially since the lockdown. And
Yeah.
even before that, just there's a ton of competition in terms of podcasting with, hearing the sports reports and, or, you hear a lot of, a lot of sports betting, like that whole market, or injury, reporting injuries and like trying to make a name for themselves. It's very hard to stand out with that. And I think you did an excellent job in creating a podcast that's out kind of the same stuff, but outside in a different realm about sports psychology that there's not a lot about. And the more that sports psychology and even want to bring in mental health, the more there's conversations around it. And if you can get it on a global level, which is your seems like your goal, like that
Yeah.
will actually make a change um, into that stigma and all of that. So I'd be
Yeah.
great.
I mean, I think that there is no end to the extent that we can talk and should talk about mental health.
No end. There's no end because if it might even seem now that we're talking about it even more, but it's not enough.
Yeah.
Not enough.
I mean, it's not going to be enough until there's a sports psychologist in every clubhouse and every locker room.
Yeah, and I hate to say this. I You don't have to put this in. Um,
I like this disclaimer and it kind of scares me at the same time.
no, it's a. I think it's the truth, and it sucks. I think if there's no way, I think that we can have a ton of conversations around it, but if there's not a way that sports like the NFL, the MLB, or the NBA, or anything like that, if there's not a way that you can monetize something that comes out of mental health, it's gonna be really hard to keep having conversations. And it sucks to say that, but I think if there's not a way to monetize, I'm trying to think of an example of how you would even monetize the conversation in mental health. Um, that's how I'm thinking about it. That's what I've heard from a couple people who think that and it sucks because like how you see the football players who you hate to see those kind of scenarios, but how many more do we need to see and hear about due to a mental health problem? Like it's just um, I don't know. What's your take on that? Do you know what I'm trying to say though? Like,
Yeah, yeah. I think that the worst thing we can do is try to monetize mental health.
but I think that's the only way that it's gonna be something where it's normalized.
I mean,
I
I just wish that there were ways that we could bring this in front of
Yeah,
the
I know.
larger audience without having to monetize it.
I know. I mean,
And I mean, how do you quantify
you can't.
mental health? Like
You
you
can't.
can't unless you have a game that you're dedicating to
Mental health.
some kind of mental health
Maybe that.
outreach.
Maybe
And
that's
maybe that's the answer.
right. Maybe you just figured it out.
I mean, it's like dedicating a game to
To-
breast cancer awareness.
Right. Exactly.
So
Exactly.
everyone wears pink and everyone donates to this. Like
Right.
a portion of your ticket sales go to this
Eh,
foundation or something, but I don't know if that can be or is going to be widespread.
right. I. Uh, so I was just in a clubhouse actually last night. I was about to go to bed, and someone pinged me in. It was Darren Waller, the tight
Yeah.
end. It was unbelievable. I asked him a question. I was shaking. Um, but he was telling his story about how he overcame addiction and how he was sober and he got so bad when I think it was his playing career he was going through it when he couldn't even look himself in the mirror when he was brushing his teeth. Like that's bad when you can't even like look yourself in the mirror like every day and just like see yourself like and not he wanted to take pills and kill himself and do all this stuff and it was just like what would happen if he actually did that and he a tight like they would be think of it like from thinking from like a business standpoint like the NFL, right? And I hate to say this but like the NFL say Darren Waller to commit suicide by overdosing, right? What would that do for the NFL and what would that do for the Raiders organization, like from a money standpoint? Darren Waller, top three tight end, like they obviously lose his life and they're going to mourn for him, but that would draw a lot of tickets. And I hate like to say that because
Yeah.
you just saw with Vincent Jackson, like
Yeah.
I mean that's bad too. Like
I mean, and the Twitter was just overrun with people who were in love with him.
yeah,
They loved him, they idolized him, and although the idolization of sports figures is not really the best way to go about it,
yeah,
the fact that so many people looked up to him and the way that he played and the kind of person that he was is really sad the
yeah.
way that it ended.
And it just seems like the importance of mental health is even brought up after the fact, after
Yeah.
someone passes away or someone kills somebody. Like that's when it's only brought up when that
Yeah.
happens.
And it's only brought up for a day or two, and then it just fades into the oblivion of 24-hour news.
Yeah.
I mean, Twitter is kind of the worst. Like, I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
It's like my favorite social media app, but simultaneously, it's the wild, wild west of news.
Yeah.
And things fly by your news feed. And it's dangerous in that way because big issues get swept aside.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a shame that, and maybe like that game, or even more professional athletes speaking about it. But I mean, there are professional athletes that are coming out about it, like Dak
Yeah.
Prescott. Um, I'm sure there's a bunch. Hayden Hurst with the Falcons. Darren Waller now, he has an organization. Like, there are people who are trying to proactively put it out there, but there's also a good amount of people that don't even believe that or even think it's a thing. So like, you could bring up the, I don't know his name, the Seahawks, the one that was abusive, and he killed his. He's being tried. It was very recent, I think last week. He killed his girlfriend, or his
Oh my gosh, yeah.
um I don't know his name either, I forget. But like, you look at that, a person like a guy like that, like an NFL player, you know, kills his girlfriend, abuses his girlfriend, and you'll see two sides. So you'll see the under, like, sure, what he did was not wrong side, but you have to keep into context of it, of his mental state, right? Because if someone does that, you're obviously not in the right mental state.
Right.
Um, and then you see the, oh, he killed somebody, he abused, done. Like, no context, just cancel, because we live in a very canceled culture. Um, so I don't know. I don't. It's just a tough it's just a tough thing to try to combat. I don't know what is going to happen and what's going to keep continuing to happen.
I mean, I think that the second we let these athletes off the hook is the second that, first of all, we lose credibility as viewers.
Yeah.
And second, the system is allowed to continue exactly the way it is, and it's not going well.
I
And
don't
I
know.
think that
I don't.
even when athletes are open with their mental health, there are still people online that are saying, I don't care about where your mental state is. I just want to see you score 50 points a game.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's
and that's a shame.
so,
You see people.
that's draining.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to score 50 points a game. I want to hide under my blanket. I
Right.
want to just go home. And how do you deal with rabid fans who are always wanting your 100% and you're not in a mental position to give it to them?
Yeah. Darren brought that up um last night, and he was saying that he doesn't even go. He very minimally goes on social media because of it. Like, he won't go on Twitter, because
Right.
Twitter's like the worst with that. Um,
Twitter's toxic.
yeah, Twitter is toxic. That's why he's liking the Clubhouse, because it was his first day on Clubhouse yesterday, so that was kind of cool. Um, and you see some Instagram comments, but like, you can just, it's hard. That's easy to like not monitor, because you don't really get that many notifications from it. You can eliminate it. But that's what he was saying, because he said he had a hard time, even when when they moved from Oakland to Las Vegas, the stadium, like being in Vegas as a player, and the everything that's out there, like for him and his addiction and stuff. And I think he said he got comments and like responses from all these fans saying, hey, don't become an addict again, blah blah blah, like all this stuff. And it was just like, he had to shut it all down. And it's unbelievable that someone would have to do that, like it's because a lot of people forget that they're people too.
Yeah.
They're not just players and stuff. So I don't know how this conversation got here, but
I don't either, but I'm totally digging it.
yeah, I'm for it.
Unfortunately, I don't have any more questions to spur more conversations like this. So, I think, do you have anything else that you want to say that we haven't covered that you think that we should cover?
No, I think do you think it was, you think you have some stuff that you could chop up
Yes,
and stuff?
I do. I think that it went really well. I think that, I mean, obviously we went over the questions I was going to answer, I was going to ask prior to this moment. And I
Yeah.
think that the answers you gave were perfectly spot on.
Um, Let me think.
Okay.
Is there any way you could send me a recording, like this recording?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or I have an idea. This
Okay.
I have an idea. So I don't know if you see me on Instagram and stuff that I've been doing with I call it can of corn.
Yeah.
So can of corn is strictly just for contributors in my book.
Yeah.
But since I have my new Mac, a new computer, I've been playing around with iMovie and like just editing like very basic skills. So nothing like what you're gonna do, but I got reached out from like a bunch of people saying, "Hey, I want to be a part of Can of Corn," and I had to tell them it's only for the people in the book, but we can still like hop on a Zoom, record something that you want to talk about in terms of content, and I'll put it out on my social media.
Yeah.
So I figure since we're on, I'm in my uniform. We're already in the
You're
state.
repping.
Do you want to hop in and just I don't we can like brainstorm about what you want to say, like literally like a 30-second clip
Absolutely.
of something related to I don't know, literally anything, and then you can just send me this clip and I'll edit it up the way that I do.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm not sure how. So, like, normally when I record Zooms, it comes up as whoever's talking, and
Uh,
then like they take up the entire screen.
could you
But I've
change
been I've been looking at this in gallery view, so I'm not sure.
and to come out in gallery view because that's how I do it.
Okay, awesome.
Um, I don't even know. This is my first time doing something outside of my book. Uh, well, what do you think would be a good piece of content to put out?
I mean, I'm gonna need to do some research on been what kind of content you've been
Well, I
putting
just
out.
I just put out mental performance content, and let me just
I'm gonna stop recording this if we're gonna go into a little brainstorm sesh.
oh yeah, that's cool.